Now, the way you would know someone is overdose,
Oh, well, let me go through that.
why
I'm
don't
gonna
you
go
tell
through the
them
steps.
Definitely
how
that
you can
These are-
recognize?
These
yeah.
are the steps. Well, first of all, you're going to see someone, they're going to have small constricted pupils. See, heroin, fentanyl, morphine makes the pupils pinpoint. They call them heroin eyes. And usually they're dark circles over the eyes, they're red eyes, but then they're pinpoint pupils. You just bring their eyes back, you'll see the pupils are pinpoint, real tiny. The face is very pale, very cold, and also clammy. The body goes limp.
Colbert, and welcome to Dr. Colbert's Divine Health broadcast. We are continuing on talking about a topic that is literally affecting millions of people, not just in this country, but around the world. We have a war going on. The enemy is after our kids. He's after them in a big way. And we have got to put on the whole armor of God.
Amen.
The whole armor. We've got to do all we can to stand against this literally infiltration
I know, absolutely.
of attack. We're talking about fentanyl overdose.
And drug overdose.
And drug overdose and drug usage and the whole topic. We have special guests with us, Jane and Greg, and they lost a daughter this year to fentanyl overdose. 19 years old,
Yes.
Nicole, right here. Beautiful. She could have been Miss America.
Here she is right here.
She's just a beautiful, beautiful 19-year-old girl whose life ended before it really should have. And so we're talking about the warning signs that you saw now looking back.
Right.
You're a clinical therapist and yet
And trauma therapist.
and trauma therapist. And I'm so glad, I'm sorry in some ways, but it shows the importance that no matter how educated, no matter how much you know,
That's right.
this could be you. And that's why I'm so excited to have you come on. And thank you guys for sharing this pain that you guys are going through and you will go through for a while. This is not going to be a quick fix for you two.
Right.
But sometimes your, what is it, mess becomes your ministry.
Ministry. Amen, that's true.
And that's you know,
That's
you've been
right.
called into the ministry that you did not want
No.
to sign up for.
That's right.
But you have been recruited
It's a
now.
tough club
So
to be in.
welcome to the army
Thank you.
of fighting for the kids,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But Jane, we were talking about how social media kind of expedited drug addiction,
Yes.
or increased it. So can you explain how that affected Nicole?
Sure. I initially, the very first time I found out that she was using fentanyl, it's an interesting story, but I actually had a client of mine inform me that they had heard from a mutual friend that she had been searching out fentanyl, and the way that she had gotten it was on Snapchat, social media. You can go on to social media and you can just request, I'm looking for fentanyl, or, you know, something.
But it's, if fentanyl, they don't use fentanyl. They've got their whole separate language.
Right, it's
their
a very
code
language.
system
Right.
on what they're looking
Like,
for.
what do they use? What
Blue,
terminology?
like blue.
Like perks. And
Perks.
Like
and
Percocets, or
Yeah.
because all the narcotics or opioids generally have fentanyl in them.
They do.
They're laced with it.
Yes.
Now, morphine, fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than morphine. That used to be our strongest. And it's 50 times more powerful than heroin.
Right.
It's so strong, just a few grains can overdose most people.
Right. So at her death, she had 12 milligrams of fentanyl in her system. It only takes 2 to be illicit, or to be lethal, sorry. And that's a lot, you know, it's 6 times over. So she would get it on social media. They will deliver it to your home. They'll put it in your mailbox. They'll put it in your bushes. It's very similar to Uber Eats. Buy a sandwich, they'll put it on the front
I
doorstep.
didn't know you could smoke fentanyl.
Yeah.
We didn't either.
I didn't know that.
When we found out she was taking Percocets, well, we thought it was just pills.
Right.
Right,
But
that's what I
they
thought.
Crush it up.
They
and
crush it and
similar to heroin, and put it in a tin. and they heat it up and smoke it through a straw or a pipe or
Right.
a tampon applicator.
Yeah.
And that's where you
it's
smell the
whatever.
electrical type smell.
Right.
Like
So the
electrical
paraphernalia
burning.
is
Yeah.
tin foil, little squares of it.
Wow.
They'll put the pill in there, they crush it, and then they smoke it through either a straw, a pen,
Whatever can get
whatever
it down,
tube
you know.
that they can find. In fact, at her death, when the person found her, she still had the tin foil in one hand and the straw in the other hand. It's very, very quick.
That's amazing.
Yeah, just stopped her breathing.
Well, what other, you said Snapchat and some other,
Any social media.
Yeah.
and they deliver it and put it in the bushes, you said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you tell them where to put it. They'll put
Wow.
it in your mailbox, or they'll drop it just like, you know, Uber Eats on your front doorstep.
Wow, that's
She
crazy.
had, I know we looked at her phone after her death, and even while she was in rehab, people would text her, "Hey, I heard you like perks. Do you want some?" It's relentless out there.
Wow.
The
temptation goes on and on.
The temptation comes on
And
and
perks
on
are
and on.
Percocets.
Right,
Yeah.
and they
that have fentanyl in
M30s.
it. Yeah. Wow.
Now, what does it do? Why are they doing it? What
Mary,
does
the
this drug
high,
do?
first of all, the high it produces, you're looking at fentanyl that's 100 times stronger than morphine. It creates a euphoria where you forget all your problems.
Right.
And
Oh,
kids, when they have trauma trapped, and so many kids that are using drugs have trapped trauma. And they want to get away from that because that trauma's with them always. They even dream about it. It comes out in their dreams.
It's in their body.
Yeah,
It's
it's part of them.
it's
It's part of their
part of them.
being, and they can't get away from it. So the only way they can is those few minutes, or those
Very few minutes.
very few minutes of that high from fentanyl or morphine or cocaine or heroin or whatever gives them that escape and literally that tremendous euphoria. Yet it's so addictive that each time they usually need more to reach the same amount of pleasure they had
to
before.
get the dopamine.
Yeah.
And the problem with fentanyl versus heroin, it's a much shorter shelf life. It doesn't last very
Right,
long. It's
right.
a 15-minute high.
That's nothing.
And then you wake up and you feel all this again.
And then you go through
have
withdrawals.
that yes, and you
Yeah.
have to use again. And that's why it's so addictive.
Can you imagine having a monkey on your back? Because when you don't get it, you get these horrible withdrawal symptoms of nausea and vomiting and sweats and feel just horrible, retching.
And where would she get? How much does it cost? Where did she get the money? The money thing.
I don't know.
I don't know
hear
that.
things like you can get a pill for $10.
Oh
You know,
no!
Yeah, it's not.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
not.
It's not
And
expensive.
it's so much cheaper than heroin and coke and all the other drugs that are out.
Okay.
You know,
The
and then-
accessibility is just
in a lot of cases,
like going to get a Diet Coke at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Except
Wow.
it becomes more of a priority even than eating or drinking
Yeah.
water or sleeping.
So was she not eating and drinking much, or did she lose a lot of weight?
She lost. Well, that was part of the signs and symptoms. She lost a lot of weight, and then I think because of the need for sugar, she would put on some weight when she was actively using. They tend to, when they're not on the drug, the
Kind of
brain
binge and-
receptors want
yeah.
the sugar
Sure.
in there, and so they're eating lots of sweets and milkshakes and things like that. So it's just your
Okay,
body's
explain
exhausted.
that now. The receptors in
He
the
probably
brain.
can.
Well, that's what happens is, especially the norepinephrine, the dopamine receptors in the brain, it's craving something that'll satisfy those norepinephrine and dopamine the brain needs. So sugar will do that too, but you got to have a lot of sugar. And sugar's addicting. That's why it's so addicting.
Right.
Because
Wow.
sugar satisfies that and will
Wow.
boost your dopamine and norepinephrine too.
Wow.
Very addictive. But heroin and fentanyl is 1,000 times more addictive. And it only gives you like that 15 minutes.
That's it.
And that's it. And so then,
And it was a euphoria like you couldn't believe, bouncing
Oh,
off the
gosh,
walls,
yeah.
happy, jumping, and then
not a
you'd
care
ha-
in the world.
Not a
That's
care in
right.
the world.
Right.
And then you would come down, and she would nod off. She would be exhausted. It was 100 to 0.
wow.
And watching that, it's a lot to live with addiction. It's a lot. It's trying. It's exhausting. It's confusing.
Right.
It's hard on a marriage.
Tears up families
It
for
does.
sure.
It does.
For sure.
Yeah.
I can see that. Boy. So what would you suggest to the parents? Now that you've gone through this, what would be like if you were to say 1, 2, 3, what would you say to the parents watching?
I think to parents and friends alike,
Friends, yeah.
don't be afraid, because friends are going to have the first impact on a teenager, more so than parents, right?
Right.
A lot of Nicole's friends knew, but they were afraid. I don't want her to be mad at me. I don't want her, and that's a skill set of the addict. You know, it's they will get mad, and friends would hold back for fear that they'd lose a friend, not thinking that that friend might lose their life, right? And same with a parent. You know, a lot of parents want to be the friend. They don't, you know, they don't really know what to say. They don't understand what to say. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want the child mad at them, right?
Right.
Gotcha.
So fear is always the enemy, right?
Sure, sure. Would you suggest for people that are watching that they bring their kids and their friends into a meeting, like bring them into the house and have a meeting and say, guys, I just want to have a talk with all of you. Let's talk about this. Drugs are going on, and maybe make them begin to account to each other.
Absolutely. I think the more you have the conversations, the more you, I think another thing too, looking back, is be the house where everybody goes. If you don't know the friends and the friends' parents, you might be leading into trouble, right? It takes a community.
It does.
We have to open the conversations. We need to open our living rooms. We need to bring open hearts to those spaces. Even if the kids say, no, I don't want to do that, do it.
But also, we don't want them behind locked doors and doing their drugs in there too.
And
so make sure it's
so with that being said, you know, we have Narcan on the table over here.
Yeah, let's show them what Narcan looks like. That's really important, I think. This will save a life.
This is what every household should have in it.
And this is over the counter. You can go in Walgreens, CVS, and buy this.
I just bought some. And Greg, tell them how you keep in your backpack.
This comes with 2 doses. And so one of the things recently...
It's a nasal spray.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a nasal spray. And so one of the things that we just recently learned was you can't give somebody too much Narcan.
Right.
And you can't hurt anybody by giving them
it won't hurt them. You do need to be careful when you do, give them the Narcan, because it brings them back.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of
they're
times,
angry many times. They get upset.
And
so,
they might come out swinging.
You know,
That's right. Got to be ready to dodge.
Now, the way you would know someone is overdose.
Oh, well, let me go through that.
Why don't you tell them how you can recognize?
These are the steps. Well, first of all, you're going to see someone. They're going to have small constricted pupils. See, heroin, fentanyl, morphine makes the pupils pinpoint. They call them heroin eyes. And usually they're dark circles over the eyes, they're red eyes, but then they're pinpoint pupils. You just bring their eyes back, you'll see the pupils are pinpoint, real tiny. The face is very pale, very cold, and also clammy. The body goes limp. The fingernails and the lips turn blue or purple, and that's a major telltale sign. They can't be awakened, and they're unable to speak. So again, you try and wake them up. They can't be awakened. They won't speak. The breathing and the heartbeat slows and sometimes will stop. And they usually make gurgling noises. So this is what you do. When you have someone like this, you immediately call 911. First thing, that'll save someone's life. Call 911 ASAP. Try and awaken them. Shake them real strong. Okay, and then you administer Narcan immediately in the nose.
It's a nose spray.
Nose spray, and it can be done easily. And that's why it's good to carry a backpack. You don't want to keep it in your car in 100-degree weather all the time, so take your backpack out, and then when you get back in your car, just put the backpack in.
We're carrying one in our car now.
We are.
Yeah, especially in this Texas heat.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
And I want us to say, I think it's very important to understand and learn CPR. Every household should learn that.
Exactly. That's the next one. Begin CPR.
That's the
Begin
next step.
CPR is number 4. You need to know. Now, one thing, if they've got it on their lips, though, some people have overdosed that have administered CPR because they get the fentanyl on their lips.
So you have to be careful.
So you do have to be careful.
So we went through a CPR training where they actually give you, a mouth protector that you can
Very
blow
good,
through.
and that's great.
And so I have
Good.
2 of them attached to my backpack that I
Great.
carry in and
And
out
so
of
in your
work.
backpack, it's good to get a mouth protector because if you do mouth to mouth, there's a chance you can get fentanyl on your lips, and it could be an overdose too.
Now, had Nicole ever overdosed before?
No.
Nothing.
No.
So there was
No.
not ever any near death before this happened.
Not that
No.
we're aware
No,
of.
that you're aware
I
of.
mean,
Yeah.
No,
Gotcha.
I mean, her history of using really was a little over 30 days when you lace it all, or no, sorry, 90 days when you lace it all together, how actively she was using. She did not have a long history with addiction.
Wow. Wow.
It,
Wow.
it was
wow.
the fentanyl. Once
Yeah.
once she had that, she needed to have it.
Wow. And she overdosed on, what, 12 milligrams, I believe?
Well,
you
that's
said?
what was in her
that's-
toxicology
Right,
report.
Right. Now,
But she also, I think with fentanyl, you have to consider the host. You know, what has this body endured? So she had been sober for 6 months, so there was no tolerance
Right.
at all. She had been on Suboxone,
mm-hmm.
which, you know,
Suppresses,
inhibits or
yeah.
suppresses
Right.
Yeah.
the effects.
It's similar to methadone. yeah.
Right, and so, you know, her body, I think she probably even took more than she really realized because she was trying to get the high.
Right.
And when you consider her host, it just didn't have the tolerance to deal or metabolize what she
Right.
was doing.
Sure. Now, after you've administered CPR, you want to make sure that you turn them on their side
Yes.
so they don't aspirate or vomit. A lot of
Right.
times when they overdose, they vomit and they aspirate and it goes in their lungs. And then finally, stay with the person until the ambulance arrives. Real important. Those are the key things you want to do with overdose because we're seeing these more and more. We got to be prepared.
Well, and I think something that's important to say is the majority of these deaths occur late in or early in the morning hours after parents go to sleep.
Ooh, wow.
Kids
Good
will be in
point.
their
Very
room.
good point.
Wow.
And which is why it's important to have Narcan in the house. And I think
Yes.
this another important thing is to not use alone. Kids are going to try things.
They're going to experiment.
This
Kids
is
will
this is
experiment.
a
You're right.
reality, and it's important to have a plan. There needs to be
Right.
a preventive plan in place where a kid even can tell a sibling, "Hey, I'm using this. You know, if I don't do something, then you know, come check on me." Something.
It's almost like a designated driver.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you need that protection. Somebody
Sure.
that's willing to sit there with you.
And watch
There's
and
no
observe
way
and
to
be
keep
prepared.
you from doing it. You know.
Wow, it's just amazing where we've come because of all, that's why we got again shut down the borders,
Yeah.
go
I
after
mean,
the cartels, shut the cartels down.
How many people this past year died?
130,000, and that's from a combination
My
of
brain
fentanyl.
can't even wrap
74,000.
around that. This year in this
So in
country.
23, I think from
was
fentanyl,
100
and 74,000 from
But
fentanyl.
from all drugs, Mary, we're talking about the most common 3 are number 1 fentanyl, number 2 methamphetamine, which is about 34,000 a year, and number 3 is cocaine, which is about 30,000 a year. All that combines about 130,000 a year. Because realize when you're overdosed on cocaine and methamphetamine, they're usually laced with fentanyl. So it usually goes back to fentanyl.
I like your analogy that you used earlier about a classroom full of kids.
Yeah, that's good. That's really
From
good.
14 to
17.
17. Think of, folks, I want y'all to think about
Yeah.
this. 14 to 17.
That's 22 kids.
22 kids a week.
Yes.
22 kids a week in this country. That's a classroom of kids being killed. Wow.
We
We
just
can
saw-
change this.
No, that's in just Texas, Mary. I believe. it
We
was
just
in
saw
Texas.
something come up yesterday of a 15-year-old kid that had died from fentanyl poisoning. And it's so sad because, you know, DEA set up this memorial wall, fentanyl deaths, and you can go in there and you see kids that are 13, 14, 15, and it's just so sad because, you know they don't know what they're doing.
Right. So
you know-
many divorce. Divorce is rampant in this
sure.
country. Families have split, financial issues. The kids get caught in the middle of this divorce. And
So these are these adverse childhood experiences.
Right.
You know, it's again back to
Trauma.
that unresolved trauma, and divorce is one of those.
exactly.
So we need to talk about things we can do. I mean, we talked about EMDR, eye movement desensitization, reprocessing to help work the trauma out. It takes multiple episodes. You got to do it multiple times, but it gets to the root. Also, they've got to have good Bible teaching. I tell people, as well as we got to get them in the Bible every day, prayer, as well as deliverance ministries. And that's one thing the church has not been doing. There's no time to do deliverance. Most churches have an hour service, that's it. We're going to be talking about that later. But also professional help. Some people, to break the addiction cycle, they have to have methadone, or they have to have Suboxone, or buprenorphine, or Naloxone. And so, again, that's extremely important. And then really knowing about drug paraphernalia, checking the children's room, knowing their friends, extremely important. Finding an addiction specialist or a 30-day detox program is also very important. We're going to go into that more later.
Thank you guys for coming and sharing your story about Nicole.
Yes,
and
we
I just pray the
appreciate it.
Lord will increase your voice
Amen.
and your sharing. I really believe the Lord can use you guys in a bigger way than even you can imagine after
Amen.
today.
I hope so.
Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
thank you
your
for your-
heartbreak
yeah.
and being willing.
Yeah,
You know,
it's-
a lot
it's
of
tough every
people,
time.
they feel like, oh, I did something wrong, and they feel ashamed and they don't want to talk.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's not it.
Yes,
That's a good topic for another session.
Something important to know is that addiction is not a parenting error.
Thank you.
That's good.
It's
Very
not.
good. Don't
Addiction is a
blame.
disease.
Exactly.
Thank
It's
you.
nobody's
Very
fault.
good.
People need to know
Very
that.
good,
Yes.
Jane.
That's
And
good.
don't blame yourself.
Right.
Again,
Please.
forgive yourself, you go on. And let your mess become your ministry. That's the
Amen.
key.
Amen. Amen.
Well, thank you. That's
Thank you
been
guys
awesome.
for
We appreciate
watching.
you
and
guys
we've got more shows to
sharing
do
this.
on this, so stay tuned. Thank you.